You're watching KUAM News Extra with Sonia Artero.
And welcome back. We are discussing the military increase on Guam with the Assistant Secretary of the Navy's right-hand man, Major General David Bice, who was recently tasked with heading up the organization that will lead the movement on at least 8,000 U.S. Marines and their dependents to Guam from Okinawa. Again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Sonia.
I appreciate it. Now, we have heard reports of efforts to try and use foreign labor for military contracts associated with this particular relocation. What is the current status of this issue?
Well, it's too early to tell about what labor will be needed, where it will be coming from. But the expectation is that we'll probably need to bring labor in from off-island, whether it comes from mainland, from Hawaii, or even from foreign labor market. It is too early to tell right now.
Why do you typically do that?
Typically do what?
Hire foreign labor to do a lot of the contracts.
If the labor market is not available where we are, then we will bring in the labor in order to meet our construction deadline in terms of buildup of forces. So if we don't have the sufficient numbers of workers here on Guam, then certainly the contractors will look at the mainland, they'll look Hawaii, and potentially, if the situation was right, they could be looking into foreign markets.
Now, since most of our skilled labor wages are approximately half of the national average, many feel allowing more foreign labor into Guam would continue to depress wages. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I would be concerned about that as well. And our federal contracting regulations go in to specify what certain standards need to be applied, in this. And as we coordinate with the Department of Labor, those issues will be addressed at that time.
Many on island fear that with the increase in military, our local teachers will be recruited to help operate the Dodea schools. As such, is there any interest in reintegrating military students with our own local population?
Well, you got to remember that we are relocating about 8,000 plus Marines and their families from Okinawa.
That's right.
To Guam. So there are Dodea schools in Okinawa. So potentially some of the teachers who are teaching up there in Okinawa could be moving down with them. As well as there's a realignment of forces worldwide out of Europe and the like. And so those Dodea school teachers, would be potentially available to move in here. If you look at the number of students, I've heard this comment made several times. Our high school is only 400 students. So the number of teachers that's pulled from the local population, does not seem to be that great in terms of compared to the number of high schools in of course, Guam. I think there are 4 or 5 high schools across Guam. So it's not the demand is not as great as someone would suggest.
But having a unified school system, is that something that you'll be open-minded about, the military would be open-minded about?
Well, it's certainly not for my decision to make. But let's go back in 10 years ago, the Department of Defense was working with the Guam public schools and to address the quality of education. And because the military families were saying they wanted better schools out here, decision was made by the Department of Defense at that time to bring in Dodea schools. The issue is not really the Dodea schools, from my perspective. It's how we can improve the Guam public school system, and I think that's the ultimate goal. If we could bring them up, that's what we really need to be working on.
So that should be a goal of ours here locally. Now, there is word the military may condemn more local land in order to expand military bases and maybe even to construct a military road across the island. What is the status of these projects?
Yeah. First of all, the guidance I've been given is to look at Department of Defense lands only. And so that's what I'm looking at in terms of our bed down or lay down of our forces and infrastructure. Now, with the way that we're going to be financing and building some of the infrastructure through what we call public-private partnership (PPP), there are opportunities where we can put, say, housing and such like that on private lands where money can flow into a private landlord perspective, or Gov Guam lands. And so using these PPPs, it expands our opportunities to go beyond the Department of Defense lands and look at opportunities for local residents as well as other governments too.
If you were to look at local lands, people would be informed well in advance.
Of course, of course.
Okay. Now, our local veterans have complained for years of inadequate service at the Naval Hospital, unfortunately, because such relocation will result in tens of thousands of new dependents coming here to Guam. What is planned for the Naval Hospital? Will you be upgrading that?
Well, first of all, there's two things, two parts of your question there. The Naval Hospital is designed for active duty, their family members, as well as retirees and their family members. That's what the Naval Hospital care system is about. Veterans, individuals who do not serve a full tour in terms of for retirement benefits, do not, are not provided medical coverage, as does a retiree. So two different categories.
I see.
They're provided support by the Veterans Administration. The Department of Veterans Administration versus Department of Defense. So there's sometimes a misconception about who rates what, and the veterans, they have a care system all to their own. Now there are partnerships, and that's what I think you're referring to here. There is a partnership established between the Naval Hospital and the Veterans Administration in terms of providing some care and some support to the veterans. They are looking at building a clinic near the hospital that would provide some of that care that the veterans desperately need.
Okay, fair enough. Stay tuned to KOM News Extra as we learn more about what Guam can expect from this long-awaited military buildup.